Welcome to My Hometown, the program that explores clubs, organizations, businesses, and issues across Nassau and Suffolk counties and sheds light on the different towns that are making a difference.
Hello and welcome to My Hometown. I'm Bill Horan, along with my co-host, Nassau Community College student Matt Leonard, coming to you live via Zoom and being socially distant as recommended.
Bill, today we are going to learn about a nonprofit organization here on Long Island called Momma's House that provides young mothers aged 18 to 24 who are homeless or close to it the guidance and direction they need to support themselves and their babies independently.
Sounds like a very important service, so let's find out more from our guest, Patricia Shea, the Executive Director of Momma's House, which is located on Wantor Avenue in Wantor. Patricia, welcome to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you for inviting me.
Patricia, first of all, tell us, how have you been doing personally during these difficult times with the COVID virus?
I've been doing great. You know, I practice all the social restrictions that there are. And so far, so good. A lot of people around me have gotten COVID, and praise God, I still haven't gotten it and hope never to.
Well, you're doing something right then, and that's great. That's the best answer that we could ever get to that question, and we hope it obviously continues.
Me too.
Your website says that women and children represent the fastest growing groups of homeless population in the Long Island metro area. Can you tell us more about this problem and that people may not even be aware of that?
We call the young women that we serve the hidden homeless because you're not going to see them out on the sidewalk and you're not going to see them sitting in the woods, but they will be sleeping on someone's couch or possibly in a car, sometimes even more extreme situations, but they're usually housed in something that's unstable and not fit for human habitation. My concern is that this is growing because as the economy is impacted in so many different ways, pre-COVID and present COVID situations, we've had girls who are in situations where their families cannot support them and their baby. So it's just becoming a crisis in every family where an unplanned or an unexpected pregnancy occurs in a young woman who has limited resources. So this is a growing population as this whole world changes upside down, and we're trying to help them find their right path.
Now, Pat, is this Momma's House, is this for the young lady and the baby, or just one or the other?
Both. We take the young women in during their pregnancy or soon after birth, and sometimes they've had another child, and this is their second child, and then that's the last child that the family will accept or the boyfriend will accept or whoever they're living with. And so this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so they come into our program while they're pregnant usually, and we try to get them through the pregnancy safely with good medical care, giving a healthy outcome of birth.
What would you call the mission of Momma's House?
Well, the mission of Momma's House is to help young women between the ages of 18 to 24 find a supportive and loving environment in order to give birth and to learn the skills necessary to be a good parent, to learn how to live independently, and by the time they leave Momma's House, the opportunity to be employed.
And I'm sure some listeners hearing this, what would be a typical say? Does someone come for 2 days? Do they come an hour a day, or for 2 weeks, 2 months?
It depends on how they are referred to us. Some are self-referred and they just hear about us, such as on our Facebook page or at our website. Others are being referred by an agency. Some of them are referred by the Department of Social Services, and they are emergency placements. Those young women come the day that they are referred, and they can stay for a day to as long as it takes for them to be able to find permanent housing. The other type of program we have is transitional. Those young women interview to come in, they apply for admission, they come in willingly, and they're very anxious to have a place to stay for a longer period of time. Those young women can stay for up to 2 years, and many of them do. And that gives us a better chance to change their lives in a more impactful way.
Is there a cost associated? I mean, do they come in and have to pay for something?
If they are referred by the Department of Social Services as emergency, the Department of Social Services will pay a fee for them to stay with us that covers their housing, their food. We add to that everything of their basic needs. So even the laundry detergent is supplied, and the services to provide references and referrals, social work and case management services. They are given a lot of service while they're at Mama's house, and it's all for the same fee. The transitional young women can either come in as someone on public assistance, or if they're working, they can contribute privately on the same rate as somebody who would be coming in from the Department of Social Services on room and board. So it's a very low amount of money and easily paid if they're working even a minimum wage job. It gives them the opportunity to start work and develop a resume, and this is really important.
Matt?
Can you tell us a little more about how Mama's House got started and maybe something about the history and what inspired you to start the organization?
So I used to take these young women into my own home through Birthright. So that's a pregnancy counseling service that provides alternatives and gives you options on how to proceed with your pregnancy. So they would refer young women to private homes to stay as volunteers. Volunteers offered their homes. So over a period of time, 10 years, I was taking these young women into my own home. And during that period of time, I got to know what the situation was even more intimately. So I realized eventually that it wasn't just a roof over their head that they needed. It was a full-scale program. We had to start removing the obstacles to making them successful young women, and that required a program, and the program had to be established. It came to a head when I took in this young woman named Judy. Judy was pregnant, and she had been a foster child in the Department of Social Services. She and her 4 siblings had been abandoned on a street corner by their parents. The parents never came back for them. The children were separated at that early age, and she was never raised with any of her family members. So she went into a foster home, and when she aged out of foster care, she was pregnant. This is not unusual for foster children who are trying to establish a family of their own, but it leaves them with very few resources. So she came to me, lived in my house, and towards the end of her pregnancy, she said, I want to get my own place. So we searched everywhere. We couldn't find anybody that would even rent a room to her. So finally, she said to me one day, I found a place to stay, and I know this community. I've been there as a foster child, so I'd like to go there. So she went there, and she had the baby. His name was Robert. And she called me when the baby was born, and I was going to bring over a layette and crib and stroller, whatever she needed to take care of this child. All these things are donated to Mama's House, and we share them with those in need. I go there, and there are 9 men and Judy living in this rooming house. The men were people out on parole, people who were drug and alcohol addicted, people who were transients. There were fights every single night. The place was filthy beyond belief. There was no hot water. She shared a room with her baby. There was no room to put up a crib or anything else. The baby slept in a drawer, just like those old pictures of babies sleeping in a dresser drawer. That's where her baby slept. She had to barricade the doors every night. It was very unsafe. So I said, Judy, you can't stay here. This is not what God intended for you and your child. This is the worst beginning ever. So she said, I want to keep looking. So I kept looking. She kept looking. One day she called me up and said, would you watch Robert while I go to the doctor's? And I said, sure. And she brought him over, and she didn't come back that day, and she did not come back the next day, and I never saw her again. So for the lack of a decent place to live, she abandoned her child. And I swore that was never going to happen again if I had anything to do about it. So that's when I began to seriously look for a place for these young women to live. And I found it. And I've been doing it ever since.
You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Matt Leonard, and I'm along with Bill Horan. And today we are talking about a nonprofit organization here on Long Island called Mama's House that provides young mothers aged 18 to 24 years who are homeless or close to it the guidance and direction needed for young mothers in need to learn to support themselves and their babies independently. Our guest is Pat Shea, the executive director of Mama's House.
Can you take us through a typical person who, the procedure that happens when someone gets in touch? Obviously, every agency or office you call is different. If you're making a doctor's appointment, they give you a day and a time. How does it work with your organization?
Well, that's pretty much what we do. Someone will call either for the young woman or she herself will call. We make an appointment for them to come in. It can be as soon as the day they call. It depends on their availability and mine. And we do an interview. And in this interview, we go through all the things in their life that are where they're at to establish a beginning point in this whole process. They also have to supply some background information, and we try to actually find out whether they would really be suited for the program. Sometimes the problems that they present are more than we can handle. So if they're seriously mentally ill or seriously drug or alcohol addicted, we're not a treatment program. So we have to refer on from our program to somewhere else. I would love to be able to meet the needs of everybody, but we're not in a position to do so. So if they meet the beginning criteria, the basic criteria, the age, the ability to adapt to our program, the willingness to live by the rules of the house, then the next step would be to verify their information, obtain their school records if we can, because one of the very first steps is to putting them into an educational program, if at all possible. So it usually takes a couple of weeks to do the whole other assessment of whether they're going to grow and learn in our process or just be wasting time. Nobody comes to Mama's house and sits in front of a television. It cannot be. They have to be actually out doing something, working towards a goal, trying to find help for themselves and their children. So that's how it begins. Then they come into the house. The house is, they sign a contract, which is just a non-binding, non-legal contract, but it's everybody on the same page. Here's what's expected of you. This is what we promise to do for you. And everybody signs off on it. That gives us a guidance on where we're going to go next. And it depends on where she's at, where we go next. As I said, the transitional young women can stay for up to 2 years. So our first assessment is educational and see what obstacles there are to her continuing her education. Many, many of our young women have never graduated from high school. So that's really the very first step, if at all possible, to help them graduate from high school. Some of them have gone to Nassau Community College to obtain a GED and to also obtain certificates in enabling them to find jobs with more skills. So education is really important to us. But sometimes there's problems with education. Sometimes they were in special ed programs. Sometimes they're very far behind. Sometimes they need tutoring. We'll try to provide that. If we have a volunteer that's skillful in that area who wants to become involved that way, we will match them up and they become partners in her goal to find out how she can get her high school diploma. Go ahead.
I was going to say, without giving any names, is there anyone you think of that came through your program and you would say today, and again, we don't want names, but they've either gone on to be an accountant or a pharmacist or a politician or a policewoman or something that, would be almost a model citizen for society that you'd say, you're really proud of that person because they had really went above and beyond what you might expect?
So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to use Bernadette. I'll just use her first name. Bernadette came to us from a family that no one had graduated from high school. So she was living in a crack house with her mother and siblings at the time that she was referred to us. So she came and lived in our house that was at that time in Malvern and went to Malvern High School and graduated from Malvern High School. This was more than her family ever thought she could accomplish, especially with a baby. So from there, we said, she was smart enough. She just needed the opportunity to proceed and to get the next step. So we said, let's apply for college with you and see what we can do. So she got admitted to college upstate New York. And I remember moving her there with my children, and I all moved her up there into a dorm on campus at this college. She stayed there. She got her degree. She then went on and obtained a master's degree. Then I recommended her to a board of directors for a Maternity and Early Childhood Foundation, which is in Albany, New York. So she stayed up there and worked on their board and was working, and now is working as a counselor and a psychologist. She also wrote a book 2 years ago about her experiences in life, including her time at Mama's house. So to me, Bernadette had an opportunity. She took it. And then she went with it. And she was smart enough to realize all the help that she could get by starting out on the first step of getting the high school diploma and then going on to college. So we changed a life for her, but also we changed her child's life. So her child also graduated from college And it will continue on in that family, the expectation of success. And that's how you start it.
I love that. There's your term for your next book, the expectation of success. But that is a great story. And for her, for the child, and to know you've been such an active part of it, and the members of your staff, I'm sure that must fill you with a lot of great spirit.
The staff is essential to the success of this program.
Oh, I see that. Matt?
Yeah.
What do you say to women who may not want to admit they need the help? I'm sure sometimes you get someone that's a little resistant to that.
More than sometimes, because we're basically dealing with teenage girls. And so they're upper teenage years and early 20s, and they still want to be young people who are unattached to a child. They're not ready yet to assume all the limitations that a new baby puts on you. So it's a big struggle for them to agree to the rules and to change their lifestyle to accommodate the needs of this baby. So we're very interested in helping them realize they love their children. There's no doubt in my mind that they don't love their children and they want the best for them, but they don't understand the sacrifices they're going to have to make to have that happen. So originally there's a lot of hesitancy about going back to school. School has not been a successful event for them. And they feel that this is something that they can't accomplish. So we do it slowly. We try at little steps. We do the best we can in helping them allay their fears, take away the obstacles to a successful experience. If they can't go back to high school for a variety of reasons, then we'll look for a vocational training program of some kind to give them a skill. They also are somewhat resistant to doing chores, to having a curfew, to having cooked meals, the things that are going to be expected of them as independent parents once they leave us. So that we tell them, while you're at Mama's house, you have one chore a day to do. When you leave Mama's house, you have all the chores to do every day. So it's just a basic platform to grow from. And I think that the ones who are successful take advantage of it.
Pat, can you tell us about what you call your Healthy Pregnancies and Birth Outcomes program?
It's really, really important for us to have good birth outcomes. So prenatal care early in the pregnancy is the one way of guaranteeing that this young woman and the baby will have a healthy pregnancy and delivery. So we monitor the fact that they keep their doctor's appointments, that they follow the doctor's advice, that they prepare for childbirth. We've had a partnership with Northwell Health for a couple of years now, and they provide workshops and environments where the mother can learn how to go through a pregnancy and how to take care of herself. And we also encourage better eating, the use of no drugs or alcohol or smoking. We try to do a smoking cessation program with anybody that is smoking so that they can stop smoking before the baby is born. And then we monitor the mother as she gets closer to delivery. Sometimes we're able to get a volunteer doula. There is a Long Island Doula Association that will help us obtain doulas for the young women, which is a wonderful experience for them. And
for us who don't know, what is a doula?
A doula is like a birth coach who will be in the hospital, will first start with you before birth and prepare you for childbirth with education and preparation, exercises, etc. And then we'll go through the birth with you in the hospital, in the delivery room, and then afterwards, if necessary. So a doula is really nice to have. And most people will not have the opportunity to have a doula, but our young women, if they're interested, will have a doula, volunteer, who will come and do this with them. And so there's a lot of support systems in place for them to get the help they need during the pregnancy to become educated and prepared for birth.
I'm just thinking, as you say that, on the open market, that could cost a lot of money, but they're getting it for free coming to you, or for whatever minimal that they might be inputting, the minor chores, taking out the trash can or something.
Yes.
I think
they get a lot for free. They're very fortunate because we live in communities that are very generous. And so they will come and share their wealth with us. Food, clothes, baby equipment, diapers, wipes. I mean, it's just non-ending, and we're so grateful because we couldn't exist without these donations of in-kind items and people's time and effort. So the doulas do this for free, and they really commit to it.
You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Matt Leonard, along with Bill Horan, and today we are talking about a nonprofit organization here on Long Island called Momma's House that provides young mothers aged 18 to 24 who are homeless or close to it the guidance and direction needed for young mothers in need to learn to support themselves and their babies independently, with our guest, Pat Shea, the executive director of Momma's House. My next question is, what kind of academic and vocational programs do you guys at Momma's House offer?
Well, we offer everybody the opportunity to get a high school diploma if they are able to. Sometimes they're so far behind that it would take years for them to get this diploma. So we try different approaches to give them the skills they need for jobs. But we also provide mentoring and tutoring. So if somebody wants to volunteer to mentor somebody or tutor them in preparation for a GED or high school diploma, or even in a job skills program, we encourage that. But right now, because of the restrictions we have safety-wise, it's hard for a mentor or a tutor to come into the house. So things have been difficult to enact under these conditions, but we know that will return once we get out of these restrictions. And hopefully that will be soon.
Pat, it's so important, obviously, when the mother, I guess, goes on. Of course, the first big event is the birth, but then they have to support that child and take care of them. Can you tell us about Momma's House and how they help with the job readiness?
Well, first of all, we had them have workshops on how to write a resume, how to dress for an interview, how to develop the skills you need in order to get a job. You can, not anybody, but a lot of people can get an entry-level job, but they can't live or support themselves on an entry-level job in Nassau County, even on Long Island, and probably not in the greater New York area. So we try to encourage them to think higher and better and look for opportunities to improve their ability to earn money. One of the things that we do is a Drive to Thrive program, because in Nassau County, if you can only work along the bus lines, you're going to have a very limited vocational experience of work, because you can't get to most of the places that need to employ you. So we try to get them a driver's license, which means that we sponsor them with obtaining all the documents they need to get a learner's permit, then giving them driving lessons, which we pay for, then trying to get someone to donate a car to them if they are employed, because they also have to pay for the insurance, repairs, and registration of a car. So it's really important that we obtain this Drive to Thrive program for most of the people that are going to live on Long Island. It's difficult for them to get a job, to get to daycare, to get to the doctor, to find their counselor if they don't have the ability to drive.
That's a great point. I'd like to amplify it a little bit with you. If someone in the neighborhood has a car and maybe either a relative passed away or it's just that kind of car that it's time to move on to another car, like many of the organizations, can they donate it to you?
Yes, they can donate it, and it's a tax write-off if they do. They can donate the value of the car when they donate it to us. And we pass it right along to a young woman who is ready to drive and start her life. And this is better to them than winning the golden ticket of Willy Wonka. They are so thrilled to have a driver's license, and this whole new world opens up to them. And now with all the jobs that you can get with DoorDash and things like that, if you have a car, you can earn a living. And it's a very, very important step. The car should just be in at least decent condition and can be driven. We don't expect your best car to be coming down the block, but that would be nice too. And recently, our minivan that was donated to Momma's House was totaled in a car accident. And now we are without our source of transportation for these young women when they need it. So if anybody wants to donate a minivan, Momma's House would be more than happy to take it off their hands. But I think the car is the key to success if you live in an environment like Long Island.
That is a great point. After the show, I want to talk to you something that might help you with that. But right now, let's go back to Matt and find out what he has to ask.
Thanks, Bill. Pat, you mentioned earlier that some mothers don't qualify, new mothers don't qualify for your services, but I bet there are some that could still use parenting education because, as we know, babies don't come with instruction manuals. But what type of parenting education do you offer?
Well, if they're living with us, we have a parenting program. We do it by workshops and also daily supervision by the house staff. Each of the houses is staffed 24/7. So there's always somebody to educate and to support the mother, especially with a newborn. But also we refer them to existing community organizations that teach parenting programs. So the American Red Cross, the Nurse Family Partnership, the many, many programs that we can access for each mother that needs parenting. And just about everybody needs a parenting program because they just have never experienced the full-time care of an infant. So it's very, very important for a good outcome of birth to also be followed by a good outcome of newborn care and childhood care.
Pat, how have you been doing on your operation there with the COVID? How has that affected you?
We have been blessed. We have not had anybody of our house staff or any of our residents get COVID. That's like a miracle. We have requested that they wear masks all the time. We take their temperature. We try to restrict any kind of people coming into the house. We try very hard to keep it a safe environment. We're concerned, of course, about the spread of COVID. We've used all the resources that we can have to get it. And so we're grateful for the support that the federal government has given in different kinds of loans and different kinds of programs that access the cleaning services, the extra staffing that we've had to do, the different kinds of supplies that we've had to get. I mean, I never thought I would devote so much time trying to get toilet paper. And this is one of the things that became a real issue at the beginning of this COVID lockdown. So when anybody asks me what I want, what's on your wish list, I always say paper goods, specifically toilet paper. If we can get a backup supply of toilet paper, we're really happy. But we also need diapers. But we only need what we can take, what we can supply, what we can store. And our storage is extremely limited. One of the things we would love to have is a small storage area. And that's very hard to find. So, these are the issues that we're confronted with because of COVID. And you wouldn't think storage would be one of them, but it is. It's very big.
Pat, I'm glad you mentioned these because I was just about to ask you how our audience can help out. You mentioned about the paper products, and then you went from the minimal paper products to the car. But I'm sure there's somebody maybe in a state or a parent who no longer drives or a grandparent. And what a great gift and to help a young lady and that child and get them started in life. I think we all like that great feeling. So We want to thank you so much. We want to remind our audience that we've been speaking with Pat Shea. She's the executive director of Momma's House in Wantagh, Long Island. Pat, good luck to you and continued success.
Thank you so much.
I'm Bill Horan. I'm here with Matt Leonard. We thank you for listening to this week's special edition of My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to WHPC at ncc.edu. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.